The hopes and dreams of a new college football season take center stage this week as Service Academy football teams hit the gridiron. For a veteran Army squad, sights are set on bringing the Commander-in-Chief's trophy back to West Point for a second year in a row.
We got a very mature team. We got enough experience and enough strong leadership that I feel good about our football team.
The Falcons of Air Force know there may be as many questions early in the season as there are answers.
Just a number of spots where we have guys that really haven't played a whole lot of college football.
The Midshipmen of Navy are hoping to erase the bad dream that was 2020.
I feel much better this year at this time than I did last year at this time. We weren't worth the crap last year.
And the Coast Guard Bears will finally get to show their mettle.
I would expect us as the season goes on that we would probably be a totally different team by games 6, 7, 8, 9, just based on our youth. Quarterback
battles, triple option dominance will separate fantasy from reality and truth from fiction as the 2020 season begins. This is Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report. Hello everyone, and welcome to week 1 of the College Football 2021 season. I'm Graham Knight. We've got a lot to get to in this first episode of Behind the Lines, and in the next 30 minutes, we'll take an inside look at all 4 Academy football teams and their opening games. We'll profile the leadership of each of the Academy squads, and we'll get up close and personal with Coast Guard Bears head coach CeCe Grant. But we start with defending CIC champs Army. The Black Knights made the most of an unusual 2020 season, finishing 9-3, winning the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for the 3rd time in 4 seasons, and going to a bowl game. What can we expect from the Black Knights in 2021? Here's Erin Summers.
Thanks, Graham. The Black Knights' defense of the CIC trophy started the minute this team came back together to practice this spring, and the focus has been on Army's veteran squad.
I'm really proud of last year's team and the guys that we have on this year's team that were part of what we went through last year. There is excitement and anticipation for this season coming up.
Army led the nation in overall defense last year, with 8 returning starters on that side of the ball, and in the second year under defensive coordinator Nate Woody, the Army defense looks to be a strength in 2021.
We're light years ahead of where we were last year, going into that first ball game. So, we're all very excited about the opportunities we got ahead of us.
Led by linebacker Eric Smith, defensive backs Cedric Cunningham, Markel Broughton, and Jabari Moore, defensive talent won't be a question for the Black Knights.
Talent only gets you so far, and we have plenty of it, but more importantly, we have guys that carry by each other and guys that work really hard, especially on that back end.
Offensively, the biggest question mark is who will line up behind center. With 6 quarterbacks splitting time last season, the Black Knights have options.
Tyre and Christian Anderson, they're probably at the top right now, battling it out. Jamel is a very close 3rd in there. And then I've been really pleased with Jabari Laws. I think Jabari Laws is going to be able to help a football team.
QB1 remains a mystery until the Black Knights' first challenge of the season, Saturday at Georgia State. The Panthers boast a prolific offense led by quarterback Cornelius Brown. While every team wants to start their season 1-0, Army has a score to settle. Just 2 years ago, Army lost in their last matchup with the Panthers in crushing fashion. An interception at the 3-yard line in the closing minute ended Army's last chance to score, and the Black Knights fell to the Panthers 28-21. Bottom line, the Georgia State game promises to be an exciting one, Graham.
Sounds like there's plenty of incentive for Army to avenge that 2019 loss. Thanks, Erin. As we mentioned at the top, the Air Force Falcons have a lot of question marks this season. There are the turnback players who set out last year and how well they'll integrate back into the mix. And what about that young offensive line? On paper, the Falcons have only 6 returning starters from a year ago, 3 on offense and 3 on defense. These questions aside, entering his 15th season, head coach Troy Calhoun is certain of a few things.
We have a bunch of spots maybe where we don't have a great deal of experience, which is one of those things. I think once we get to the midpoint of the season, we're going to be a different team than what we are today.
But starting off is a squad that, despite playing only 6 games last year, led the nation in rushing, averaging 305 yards per game running the triple option. Leading that group will be returning fullback Brad Roberts, who was the team's top rusher. The starting quarterback looks to be junior Hazik Daniels, who started all 6 games in 2020 and had as many pass attempts as rushing attempts. The Falcons are hoping to open things up more this year with promising wideout David Cormier and tight end Kyle Patterson, adding options to the passing game. But it's on defense where the Falcons could be the most impressive, with the vast majority of 2020 turnback players being defensive players who set out the COVID year. Air Force was still 3rd in the nation in scoring defense a year ago, despite missing so many players. 1 year older and with a full off-season of practice, these returning turnback players are hoping to make an impact, like they did in the 11-win season of 2019.
We still have some key components from that year.
Cornerback Trey Bugg led the team in interceptions in 2019, and the year off has made him even hungrier to get back on the field.
Just having to sit out a full year, a full calendar year from football, and it was definitely motivating.
Bugg, a senior, along with linebackers Lakota Wills and DeMonte Meeks, who also set out 2020, will lead a defense that was 2nd in the Mountain West Conference in passing defense in 2019.
I think with the leadership coming back, we'll be able to foster that environment a little bit better because we've seen it. We've been 5-7, we've been 11-2. We know what it takes, and I think we're going to be pretty good and pretty stout.
First up for Air Force, FCF squad Lafayette College of the Patriot League. The Leopards didn't play last fall because of the pandemic, but were able to have a short spring season earlier this year, going 2-1. For Navy, last season was a bit of a shipwreck. A blowout loss in Game 1, losses to Academy rivals Air Force and Army by a combined 55-7. While there were a few glimmers of hope on the defensive side of the ball, last year left a bitter taste in the wake of a 3-7 season. But it's a new year, and with the start of a new season, there's optimism in Annapolis. Here's Diane Roberts.
That's right, Graham. In order to get that bad taste out of their mouth, player after player is telling me they just have to practice. They have to work hard, something they're doing on these very fields, physically, in pads, unlike the 2020 COVID season. What a difference a year makes. Last preseason, there was no contact practicing, and the results showed. With a 52-point thumping in Game 1 and just 3 wins all year. But now,
it's just completely different. I'm just impressed because we're back, and guys, it looks like Navy football.
And going through these summer workouts, going through 4 quarters, going through off-season, guys have that fire in their eyes, guys have that purpose, and guys have that 1-2.
Navy football also means a tradition of winning. Coach Ken Niumatalolo has had 10 winning seasons in his 13 years at the helm, including 3 double-digit win seasons. Part of the reason for his optimism this year, a quarterback tandem that gives his triple option offense, well, options.
What we do on offense, you need more than one quarterback.
Xavier Arline is the incumbent, having started 3 games as a freshman last year.
There's nothing like game experience. It's fast, it's quick. It was just good to get live looks, game speed, game clock, just the whole game scenario. I'm blessed for those reps, and I'm going to carry that into this season.
Sophomore Ty Lavita and junior Masai Maynor are also in the quarterback mix for a team that traditionally has been among the leaders in the nation in rushing offense. Coach Niumatalolo says don't expect him to announce his Game 1 starter until game day. On defense, the Middies return a squad that was in the top 10 last season in fewest passing yards allowed. Game 1 promises to be a challenge. Marshall boasts a defense that gave up the 2nd fewest yards per game in the nation last year. And their new head coach, Charles Huff, was the running backs coach for defending national champs Alabama a season ago. The Thundering Herd finished 1st in Conference USA last season, so Navy's head coach knows they better not look ahead to Game 2 against Air Force.
If we do that, we're going to get killed by Marshall. I mean, they're picked to win their league, really good coaching staff, they're a really good football team. They got some transfers, some Power 5 transfers, and so it's going to be a tough game.
And there's an interesting reason, Graham, as you know, why they picked Marshall for the first game of the season.
That's right, Diane. Navy's game against Marshall will honor retired Navy Athletic Director Jack Lengel. Lengel served as the AD at Navy from 1988 to 2001, but he was also the coach who took over at Marshall 50 years ago in 1971. That was the season following the tragic crash of the plane carrying the Thundering Herd football team, killing 37 players and 8 coaches. That plane crashed in November of 1970. It's a story captured in the 2006 film We Are Marshall. And this weekend, the echo of that thundering herd will reverberate off the stands at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. Behind the Lines will be at that game, and we'll have a full report for you next week at this time. Still ahead, a look at the captains of this year's Academy squads. The key component, leadership, of course. And later, the Coast Guard Bears will be back on the field this week. We'll talk with Coach C.C. Grant on how his debut season as head coach turned into a one-weekend affair. As Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report rolls on. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. It may be the greatest honor a player can have, being named captain of your team. But for Academy football squads, there's something that distinguishes a captain even more. Their virtue is the ability to be a leader among leaders. Here's Diane Roberts.
Graham, leadership is nothing new in sports, but at service academies, it might take a little bit different form. These guys, after they leave the playing field, they're going to go on to be leaders in the military. So leadership is something special, especially for the captains.
We, as captains, we're in charge of holding the standard and kind of pushing the culture of the team, making sure that's upheld. But that's not taking away from any of the leadership abilities or capabilities of the other people on the team.
These may be Army linebacker Eric Smith's words, but it's a common refrain echoed at Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard, too. If you talk to the captains of any of the service academies, they'll tell you any one of the players could have been captain. When your marching orders after college dictate service to country, service on the field is another opportunity to set an example.
We kind of know our role. We all have different personalities, and we kind of just use that to kind of lead the team.
I think we cater the traits that we all have to the situation, and I think there's never really any conflict with it, and we lean on other leaders in the team, guys on the offensive side of the ball, other guys on the defensive side of the ball, and it's by committee. It's no one guy.
Army's captains, Markel Broughton, Nolan Cockrell, Cedric Cunningham Jr., and Eric Smith are all defensive players. At Navy, 2 captains come from each side of the ball. Chance Warren and Michael Cooper on offense, Diego Fagot and Kevin Brennan on D. And they've developed their leadership skills from those who came before them.
As a leader, as a captain, I think he embodies, what I want to aspire to, because, his mentality, the way that he attacked every single day with that positive attitude, with, checking his baggage at the door, leaving everything behind.
I'm like a fiery, leader, stuff like that. But Malcolm was very quiet and just led by example. So I like to take pieces of that, try to take some stuff that he showed me leadership-wise and try to translate it to the way I lead.
The thing that I love about these young men, they embody everything that we're looking for here at the Naval Academy. They're obviously really, really good football players, but they're good people. They're men of integrity and character.
I think our players did a really good job of selecting members on our leadership council that will represent them well and do a good job with leadership.
Leading now in football and later taking the helm as officers falls on Coast Guard captains Adam Jabril Barnes, Mason Schroeder, Michael Palermo, and Damaso Jamie. As for Air Force, we're not holding out on you. Head coach Troy Calhoun won't announce team captains until later this season. Sometimes the Falcons use game captains. He'll make that announcement on game day.
Leadership can be an individual responsibility, but a collective one too, and everybody can play a part that way. I like, especially for older guys, our seniors, to feel like, hey, here's a way where we can impact the direction of our team, rather than just saying it's solely 3 or 4 guys that can do that.
Throughout this season, we'll profile some of the captains as they continue their leadership journey on the gridiron. But next, the former baseball coach who became the head football coach only to have to wait a year to coach his second game. We'll have the details when Behind the Lines continues. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. So here's a riddle for you. What do the banks of the River Thames and a lost season of football have in common? The answer, the Coast Guard Bears in New London, Connecticut. Geography aside, 2020 brought a great deal of optimism for new head coach C.C. Grant, but the pandemic relegated the Bears to a single game, the Secretary's Cup, which was played in November. Coast Guard lost that game to rival Merchant Marine 24-14. But for the new head coach, there was a bright side. At least his seniors had a chance to play one last time. Coach Grant is a versatile guy. He was defensive coordinator and a baseball coach before he took the top football job. I had a chance to talk with him recently to look ahead to this year, but also to reflect on what was almost an entirely lost season.
Well, I think first and foremost, it was a blessing just to be able to play the one game that we did. And get to spend the time that we did with the outgoing class, so those 22 kids, just to go in, to have at least one game with them. You kind of take it as it is. There's nothing that you could have done about how the situation played out. But I just consider myself lucky to be able to coach those guys, even if it was only for one game.
I thought about you often last year. How do you prepare for just one game?
We kind of took it easy. We did have an outbreak here at the academy, so even in preparation for that game, we missed a whole week of practice. We shut it down. We thought it was going through the team a little bit. We took it kind of slow. It's kind of a slow burn, and we kind of built up to it. I think the kids, I thought from a coaching standpoint, my coaches did a very good job because we put ourselves in position to win that game. And, in the end, Kings Point just outplayed us. But from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, I thought we did a great job of prep, and our kids were ready to play that day.
Well, let's talk about players. Understand it's a young team. Understand there might be a lot of question marks. Are there anybody on your roster that we should be watching or anybody you're particularly excited about this year? Any starters coming back?
I would say first and foremost, if you watch that Kings Point game, one of the best players on the field that day was Jared Coletti. And he was a starting running back that day. I look for high things from him. We're going to have a new starting quarterback, a kid by the name of Tafari Wall, is going to get a chance to play. The offense may look a little bit different, especially since you got a 6'3", 6'4" quarterback who can run a little bit. Also, DeMaso Jamie was one of our top returning receivers. So we got some weapons on offense. It's just a matter of being able to chance to try to get them the ball. Defensively, Mike Palermo is going to be a starter for us. At corner, we got a kid, Adam Jabril Barnes, who we've been looking for. We thought last year would be the year that he'd have a breakout. He's a kid I recruited out of Texas, and he was, as a senior, I want to say he won 55 hurdles in the state of Texas in the TAPS division, so he can run a little bit. Those two guys will be the anchor point of our defense, but those other three guys I mentioned on offense, I'm looking for big things from those guys.
Let's talk about the schedule. Your season opener is September 4th against New England Nor'easters. Anything particular about your schedule or any games that you really stand out to you?
Just probably the opening game, because it'll be the first game we've really played almost 2 years to get us going. But then obviously there's certain games on the schedule that have special meaning. The Norwich game, the Kings Point game. Those games are always good. They're doing something here a little bit different this year because we missed homecoming last year. We're actually going to have 2 homecomings this year. So it'll be exciting for the players because they're definitely have people in the stands in those games. But normally first game of the year, and then obviously Norwich and Kings Point are the ones that you could probably sit down and say, all right, those games have a special meaning because of different implications that are involved in them. And I would expect us, as the season goes on, if we stay healthy, that we would probably be a totally different team by games 6, 7, 8, 9, just based on our youth. And we found guys who maybe if we have to move a guy here or there who can who's come along, that we would get better as the season go on. So that to me is a big thing, is just keep improving. We'll have a start point on September 4th, and as long as we improve from that point on, we'll be fine.
Coach Grant, I think you've paid your dues, and now it's time to play some football. And for all you Coast Guard Bears fans out there, expect a Coast Guard Bears report in every Behind the Lines episode this season. When we come back, we'll introduce you to the Behind the Lines Social Media Fan of the Week. And yes, she's a trophy winner, just like her son. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Behind the Lines. It's time to give a big shout out to our social media fan of the week, Gina Tony Lavita. Her Twitter handle, Gina Lava Mai Tai. Clearly she's got a sense of humor. She's the mother of Navy sophomore quarterback Ty Lavita, and Gina is always quick to like and or retweet our post about the midshipmen. Imagine that. Clearly she's a devoted fan. Gina, thanks for being such a great fan, and thank you for your follows of Behind the Lines. As a thank you, we're sending you one of our Behind the Lines umbrellas. And if you'd like to nominate a fan for a shout out, just email us at btlreports@isomermedia.com. That's btlreports@isomermedia.com, and we'll take care of the rest. All right, it's time to wrap things up. But before we do, we want to let you know that next week we'll preview the first Commander-in-Chief's Trophy game of this season as Navy hosts Air Force on September 11th. This will be the earliest these two teams have ever met. The game will be played in recognition of the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, and our crews will be there to cover all of the action. So please join us next week for a preview of that game, as well as Army's clash against Western Kentucky and Coast Guard clash against Curry College. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Graham Knight, and we'll see you next week right here on Behind the Lines, the Academy Football Report.